Okay, I wanted to see if I could address one particular issue today. Not sure how successful I'll be, we'll see. But the issue is this. I've heard again and again this idea that self-advancement is selfish. And therefore, advancing yourself, if that is your goal, is really a bad thing because it's a selfish thing. And so this is a complaint, interestingly enough, when I was reading Kingdom of the Cults, and I can't remember the author, but it's a book where this guy, he's like a Protestant or something, and he goes through several of the modern day, at least as of the 20th century, religions, and it tries to point out what he thinks are the errors in them. And when he gets to Buddhism and similar religions, he claims that their one fallacy is that since the goal is for the individual to achieve enlightenment, they are therefore a selfish, the goal is a selfish goal, and therefore it's like a complete evil, since your entire goal is something that's only for you. Now, over time, I have gleaned a completely different perspective on that. And at the time, it really bothered me, but I couldn't pinpoint, I couldn't really find a pinhole in the argument, or whatever. But some things I read recently addressed that head on. I believe it was in the Urantia book. If so, we'll get to it eventually. But it was one of those things where at the same time I heard from several different sources the same concept. And I guess what I would like to share in that regard primarily is this viewpoint in the Urantia book, where it portrays the advancement of the evolving mortal like ourselves from the very, very beginnings of not even having a soul. You start with these elements that are capable of creating a soul on the fabric of the mind throughout a lifetime, and how that just gradually builds. You start basically at nothing and you build and build, and how there's this tremendously long evolutionary process before you reach paradise. And of course, reaching perfection is your goal. Ever since, apparently, God himself gave this mandate that said, "Be ye perfect as I am perfect," to all of the ascending species. And then apparently all of creation, the gears started turning, and it all started gearing itself up for helping this to happen and facilitating and creating this marvelous machine that is the creation as we know it, the inhabited universe that helps us to make this journey, okay? And every single step of the way, it says, every single step of the way, you learn something, you turn right around and teach it to the people right below you, right behind you. Learn a new thing, turn around and teach it to the people that don't know it. Learn something else, turn around and teach it. And the whole process is a process of benefiting everyone who comes into contact with you. And as your vibration elevates, the ripples go throughout like the entire earth and the entire universe, or wherever you're at. The idea is that having this elevated vibration, getting closer to perfection, sends vibrations through the fabric of every single person you rub shoulders with in any capacity. Therefore, in the life of Christ, as portrayed in the Urantia book, what does he primarily do? He makes this deliberate attempt to rub shoulders with a lot of people, and then a few people to really spend a lot of quality time with them. I think of the merchant, the Indian merchant, where Christ apparently went all the way around the Roman Empire with them over a year, and then of course the apostles later. And then what it portrays is that the key benefit of the ministry of Christ wasn't necessarily the facts of the Christian religion or the dogma of the church that arose. It was really this vibration, this effect that he had on everyone he touched, this elevation of vibration in everyone, and it just apparently ripples throughout the globe, and then that carried on even up to this day and will far beyond. So, one thing to keep in mind, first of all, I think, from everything I've gleaned from all these different sources, is that in becoming more perfect, in moving up that ladder, in improving yourself, you will, by default, help to improve everyone you rub shoulders with. And more importantly, if you realize this fact, you realize this is the rhythm of the continuously unfolding song of God's creation, is this rhythm of learn something, turn around and help somebody with it. Learn something, teach it. Learn something, so it's, you just, you get into this, you're conscious of it, you start to, it's easier to get more in sync, and to I think this process, and it just builds on itself, in helping others. This helps to elevate you further and faster and more thoroughly. Everybody wins. That's the thing. You're not an isolated system. Now, it is interesting to note that, for instance, one example I would think of immediately is in the Urantia teaching mission, in one of those few readings where they're actually talking about reincarnation. There is this entity that's channeling through, and the entity says that he was a monk in the Himalayas or something, and that he spent his whole life in seclusion developing himself. And since he didn't really help anyone else, he didn't rub shoulders with anybody else, that he felt a real burden to turn around and contribute, to turn around and assist people, to really put a significant effort now into assisting the development of the people still on Earth. And so therefore he apparently was one of the many, many, many thousands, or even more, who knows how many, volunteers of various types of entities, elevated entities that are assisting now, apparently, and available to help anyone who asks for like a teacher or assistance for guidance or channeling, spiritual development, etc., etc., etc. So that brings up the important point that, sure, there is some truth to that. It's just a selfish end if your only goal is to improve yourself. So I guess the key is not to abandon that pursuit of trying to reach nirvana. It's to understand this rhythm of take a step, turn around, help the guy behind you take a step, take another step, turn around, help the people around you take another step. Understand that rhythm, understand that it's important to stay plugged in at least some capacity, plugged into the fabric of humanity around you, and in whatever way you see fit to help to contribute to the elevation of others around you. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of those, even those monks hidden away in their own secluded schools or whatnot, if they're helping a few others who come to the school, initiates who come to the school and want to advance, well, boom, there you go. They actually are turning around. They're passing it, passing it back, passing it on, or paying it forward, however you want to look at it. So I hope that clarifies in anyone's mind who may be confused or as confused as I was when they heard that concept that, trying to reach nirvana is bad because it's selfish. It's just for you. Trying to reach enlightenment is bad just because it's just for you. That's selfish. and where does that leave you? It's like you have this quandary. Are you supposed to like have some mental gymnastics you go through as you go along to make sure you're not trying to be selfish? Or it's ridiculous where that ends up putting you. I think if you don't really understand this perspective, this larger perspective of how it is all really is tied together. Helping yourself is helping others, and to stay plugged in with others, and you may not even realize it, but just by virtue of the fact that you're around other people, just in your normal day-to-day capacity, as you elevate yourself, your vibe is going to spill over and assist them, elevate them in ways you couldn't even imagine. And I guess I'll close with this story of one day when I was, I guess it was back in 2000 or something, and I had this day job as kind of this software engineer for this digital piano company in Des Moines, Iowa. And in the morning, right around that time, I was really getting into this meditation thing, and I was reading these affirmations that Edgar Casey had, and I think in one of his books on psychic development or meditation, he had some affirmations that are kind of like mantras, and he had just a ton of them, So I skimmed through them and found one that seemed that I really resonated with, and so I meditated on that mantra, recited it over and over, like this intense prayer for the entire half hour, 45 minutes, hour, whatever it was. And, I felt kind of uplifted. It was nice. But what was interesting to me, that was the first time I had done that. And what was interesting to me is then when I went to work, and at work it was the same kind of environment around the same, 5 guys or so that were sitting in the same room that it had been for weeks in the past. And nothing was really different. But it was amazing how it seemed that everything was charged with this positive energy, with this positive vibe. The guy on the phone doing tech support was suddenly, he seemed like positive and upbeat and constructive, and that just the flow of all the events and interactions had this really kind of constructive, upbeat rhythm to them, and everything was clicking, and it was just glorious, to see this change. And I couldn't help but think, gee, I wonder, is this just because of this small amount of time that I invested in focusing on this positive ideal or idea for half an hour or whatever in this meditation? And I guess that was the first time I really clearly saw this kind of effect, where you improve yourself, and just without you won't even be able to help it. It's going to spill over to everybody around you that you rub shoulders with, and probably everybody they rub shoulders with on down the line. So probably like this drop in the water, and then it'll probably go around the whole earth, and just eventually affect everything in a slight uplifting. So I feel a lot better about that. I think I addressed my understanding at this point of what the real issue is with seeking enlightenment, and is it or is it not selfish. So there you have it. Share and enjoy.